Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Reactor, and this is Quinn. And today's article comes from thewashingtonpost.com and says, Lab-grown brain bits open windows to the mind, and a maze of ethical dilemmas. So they grew a brain. You know what's crazy about that? Like, if you actually grew a brain that was working without a body and you were able to keep it alive and stuff like that, there would actually be, like if it was a human brain, a consciousness inside that brain that knew nothing else. Sort of like being in its own universe. You know?
Okay.
Just blackness and left to your imagination. And it could technically be living in a world that it created, you know, inside its brain. You know, like a dream. You can dream.
Okay.
It wouldn't know what to dream because it wouldn't have any, it wouldn't know what the real world is like. But I don't know, it wouldn't be scary, I don't think. It would be comfortable.
That's a good point.
In Philadelphia, Zhu Kwin yanked open an incubator door at the University of Pennsylvania to review rows of cylindrical tubes swirling like shaken up snow globes, with a strange and exotic flurry. The pale peppercorn-sized spheres were lab-grown globules of human brain tissue, or as Quinn occasionally refers to them, mini-brains. Okay, he's making brains. Mini-brain is a controversial nickname loathed by some scientists who fear it conjures alarmist images of fully functioning brains trapped in vats, while the reality today is balls of cells that can't think or feel. They say they can't think or feel, but who's to say that? You know, unless you're one of those brain bits.
Right. It sounds more like food.
Zombie food. But the term vividly evokes the aspirational goal of this fast-moving area of research, to mimic the complexity of the human brain and illuminate the biology of the human mind, one of science's darkest black boxes, as the technology, which scientists refer in journal articles as cerebral organoids, improves the more the mini-brain title fits. I'm not sure what they were even saying right there. Today, organoids that resemble different regions of the human brain are routinely spun up from stem cells in large batches in laboratories and around the world. Researchers have refined their recipes since the technique was first described 5 years ago, but the process is surprisingly hands-off. After a few nudges from scientists, stem cells grow into spheres with about 1 million neurons through a naturally occurring choreography that mirrors early brain development in the womb. At day 100, Quinn's mini-brains resemble a portion of the prenatal brain in the second trimester of pregnancy. So they're just not fully grown yet. But it seems like they could keep growing.
Right.
If you put one of these brain gobs into a uterus, will it grow into a full brain?
What's the question of ethics here? Is it that you can you use these new brain cells to make someone smarter?
Yeah, like inject them into their brain and
Right.
Whoa, what would happen?
I mean, maybe that's the ethical question.
If you inject stem cells into your brain.
Yeah, like a person who was never meant to go beyond a certain, level of, I don't know.
Well, I mean, our brains are pretty snug in our skulls, so I don't know if you could fit any more brain in there.
Yeah.
But if you had extra space in your brain, which would be unfortunate,
if you're always
I
doing,
guess it would bring you up to terms with normal people.
I mean, maybe somebody who's using a lot of chemicals or whatever, they're losing tons of brain cells all day long. So it really help them out. I don't
Like
see
drug
that.
addicts?
Yeah.
That's the future of drugs.
Right.
You wasting your brain away? Don't worry, we'll just inject some stem cells back into your skull,
Right.
and you'll regrow that. People are more worried about if they reach a certain level, if it's really like a human brain. We're not there. We're very far from there, said Han Jun Song, who leads the laboratory at Penn's Perelman School of Medicine, where Quinn works. But the question people ask is, do they have consciousness? The biggest problem I have so far is, I think, as a field, we don't know. What is consciousness? What is pain? Well, if there are neurons, then, I mean, I guess it's not a big enough brain to be an extremely conscious brain, but, it's still maybe equal to a squirrel or stuff like that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with, they need to start experimenting on humans. I don't mean like kidnap humans and like cut them open and do vivisectomies and stuff like that.
Right. But people that just have nothing to lose and they just.
Oh no! I don't even mean like hurting humans. I mean like cloning humans.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or mixing human DNA with a chimp. You know?
I didn't mean anything dangerous. I just meant like nothing to lose, like more like their time. You know, not like a body limb or something.
At the moment, mini brains are far from anything approaching moral personhood in a dish, and the technology may never come close. But the rapid pace of progress on organoids has led scientists and ethicists to call for a public ethical discussion that can move in tandem with the research. If you create a human, from scratch somehow with science, that's not unethical.
Is it unethical to remove a part of the brain the person may not have been using in order just to give them back that part of the brain that they never even would have known they lost?
Like, what do they do, a lobotomy on them and then inject stem cells to see if it works? That's, I don't know. Or what about people who have gotten lobotomies? People still do that, I think.
I don't agree with people being tested with lobotomies. However, removing a small part of the brain doesn't seem too unethical.
I guess. Do you know how lobotomies work?
Isn't that where they remove the part of the frontal lobe of the brain?
Well, originally, I don't know if they updated the practice or anything, but it was originally they would take like an ice pick-like thing and push it past your eye into your brain.
Oh.
And then scratch the surface of your brain.
Oh, just
so that
the
you got
surface.
damage and then you're lobotomized. You lose your anger, your emotional. I don't know. It's something.
Yeah, but don't people usually turn into vegetables with that kind of procedure?
I guess you could, but I know some people survived and they enjoyed it. Not the practice of it, but afterwards they were happy.
If you're taking an ice pick, as you call it, and you're scraping around the front part of a brain, it seems to me that you should know what you're doing or you might not get the desired results.
Seems to me you should lose your medical degree. The disembodied brain, after all, is a long-standing trope of cultural fascination and even philosophy, ranging from the serious metaphysical thought experiment called The Brain in a Vat to the screwball sci-fi comedy The Man with Two Brains, in which Steve Martin finds himself falling in love with a charming woman's preserved brain. Huh? Oh, I never seen that movie, have you? If at the sunset of life, the brain is what you examine to know if someone has died, at the beginning of life, is there a point where you might say, look, the brain is at the beginning of life, said In Soo Hyun, a bioethicist at Case Western Reserve University. Many people don't understand where the science is now and where it could go in the future, including, I think, the researchers. Organoids offer a powerful tool for scientists studying the mysteries of the brain, which by some estimates is the most complex object in the world. Unlike cancer, which researchers can study by growing cancer cells in a dish, the brain and its disorders have been largely off limits, except through hard-to-get post-mortem tissue that offered only a snapshot or by trying to study much simpler animal brains. More than a decade ago, scientists discovered it was possible to create stem cells by reprogramming a person's skin cells. They could use the procedure to create any cell type in the body and study the basic biology of specific diseases that afflict people, ranging from Down syndrome to diabetes. I remember when the stem cells were like from umbilical cords, and I guess they're saying they updated it, and they figured out they could just take skin cells and reprogram them. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I haven't heard much about people eating umbilical cords lately, but I know they used to. Well, no, they didn't eat them, but, Christopher Reeves on South Park did.
Yeah.
Or he was eating babies, wasn't he?
I
The stem cells.
Yeah, they had him doing something like that, something ridiculous like that.
Sergei Pasca, a neuroscientist at Stanford University, dreamed as a medical student of understanding the biological basis of autism and schizophrenia. Now his lab uses stem cells from people who have those conditions to grow cerebral organoids. So they're growing autistic brains. That's crazy. This gives us aspects of human brain development that were previously inaccessible. Most of the work we're doing right now is to study the really hidden biology of the human brain, Pasca said. By creating organoids from people with a genetic disease that causes autism and epilepsy, he was able to watch how brain cells migrate during early development. Pasca and his colleagues saw clear differences. One type of neurons jumped around in an abnormal and inefficient way in the organoids from the patients, giving the researchers a window into a critical part of development that could have long-term consequences. Cool. Why don't they? I mean, they could just play with monkey brains, make monkey brains, get it to the full development. Like, I actually want to see a brain in a vat.
Yeah, like there is autistic monkeys, right?
Are there?
Right.
I guess.
Like, can they diagnose a monkey with
Well,
autism?
no, I think a lot of
I know they diagnose them with depression.
A lot of genetic diseases only exist in humans, I would assume. I'm sure they do exist in other animals, but they're way more common in humans because we like to take care of the people who can't take care of themselves. So then they're able to keep reproducing and keeping that disease going. So I know humans have way more genetic disease, only because it's not, you can have a genetic disease and still live to reproduce because we all take care of each other, you know?
Right.
Ryan Salinas, a clinical fellow in Ming's lab, grows organoids from patients with a deadly brain cancer in the hopes they might provide a better tool for testing the effectiveness of drugs. And then one day, maybe they can take a brain from a vat and put it into an unused human body, like someone who dies, and then they can I don't know, because I don't know.
I feel like there'd be a tremendous conflict of interest between the body and the brain. Like, there'd be, like, muscle memory for certain things, and the brain would be unsure of why.
Yeah, but your brain is you.
Brain is you.
And muscle memory might be in your brain.
Isn't it in your brain?
Yeah.
What do I know? I don't know. Right.
I don't think muscles actually memorize it. It's your brain memorizes movement or something.
Wait, the muscles don't have any memory?
No, they're not brains. At the University of California at San Diego, stem cell scientist Alison Muatri is attempting to Neanderthalize a brain organoid as part of his larger search for the biological basis of modern humans' sophisticated social abilities. He used gene editing technology to introduce a mutation found in Neanderthal genomes to a modern human stem cell. The early unpublished results, he says, are an organoid that, instead of being smooth and spherical, is lumpy like popcorn, suggesting that the gene mutation significantly influences early brain development. That would be pretty cool. Like, if we could get the DNA of Neanderthals and do like a Jurassic Park with a human embryo.
Make like a whole Neanderthal world
Army.
Where you can go
We
fly
can enslave the
over it.
Neanderthals,
and be
make
like-
them our workforce.
And you could fly over and be like, look, they're starting a colony. Look, they broke off into separate groups.
Oh, look, they're at war.
There's a right side and a left side. They're making they're making an army.
What is this? Dan Zhang, a doctoral student, examines the sorts of organoids at the University of Pennsylvania. Cool. 5 years ago, an ethical debate about organoids seemed to many scientists to be premature. The organoids were exciting because they were similar to the developing brain, and yet they were incredibly rudimentary. They were constrained in how big they could get before cells in the core started dying, because they weren't suffused with blood vessels or supplied with nutrients and oxygen by a beating heart. They lacked key cell types. Still, there was something different about brain organoids compared to routine biomedical research. Song recalled that one of the amazing but also unsettling things about the early organoids was that they weren't as targeted to develop into specific regions of the brain, so it was possible to accidentally get retinal cells. Oh yeah, they were just making any random brain cells, I guess. I really do wonder what happens if you inject stem cells into your brain, though. Like, maybe your brain just rejects them and ignores them, or maybe they start connecting and you start getting a headache because your brain has no room. No. It's difficult to see the eye in a dish, Song said. He grew an eye. Now researchers are succeeding at keeping organoids alive for longer periods of time. At a talk, Hyun recalled one researcher joking that the lab had sung Happy Birthday to an organoid when it was a year old. Some researchers are implanting organoids into rodent brains where they can stay alive longer and grow more mature. Oh, what? Like, human brains into rodents? Others are building multiple organoids representing different parts of the brain, such as the hippocampus, which is involved in memory, or cerebral cortex, the seat of cognition, and fusing them together into larger assembloids. They're just making up all these words. So they're building a brain one piece at a time. Even as scientists express skepticism that brain organoids will ever come close to sentience, they're the ones calling for a broad discussion and perhaps more oversight. The questions range from the practical to the fantastical. Should researchers make sure that people who donate their cells for organoid research are informed that it could be used to make a tiny replica of parts of their brain? If organoids became sophisticated enough, should they be granted greater protections, like the rules that govern animal research? Without a consensus on what consciousness or pain would even look like in a brain, how will scientists know when they're nearing the limit? The scientists often look at this tiny little piece, 2 millimeters cubed, and to think that represents the potential for, say, consciousness or some larger construct. As a scientist, you think, of course, that is not really a human brain, said Rusty Gage, Rusty Gage? That's weird. There's Rusty Cage, the YouTuber? I don't know. This guy's Rusty Gage. They're competing for a similar name. President of the Salk Institute for Biological Studies. On the other hand, I've been in this long enough to know it's not just the facts. It's a perception of it and how the public sees it. As scientists employed organoids into animals, creating mixed creatures, chimeras, with some human brain cells, new questions emerge. So far, a human organoid in a mouse brain makes up only a tiny portion of the brain. Gage tested whether these mice have unusual cognitive abilities and found none. But, I mean, you have to put, like, the part of the brain that would give it cognitive abilities, you know? Maybe you could enhance its memory by giving it the memory pieces, or maybe you can give it emotions by giving it that part of the brain.
As long as you're not mistreating these animals, most people probably don't want to see animals be tested on. However, if you can inject, do we really want primates that are super, super hyper intelligent, that are watching YouTube, learning how to melt down metals to make bullets, possibly making guns?
Well, no.
You know,
the only issue that would probably come up from making sentient apes, if they're not already sentient, but you know what I mean, like making them human intelligent apes, is that humans will definitely mistreat them and consider them less than human, you know? And
they wouldn't even probably recognize like the first great feats of,
they probably continue to treat them like animals. You don't want to go to McDonald's and see a chimp is making your burger, you know? That's gross. It's an animal, you know? He throws poo.
I think what really people don't want to see, though, or hear about, is like a lab where there's like a chimp that has like 800 human ears growing on its back. That just freaks everybody out, and they're like, "Why are you doing this?"
They did it with a mouse,
right? And people are like, "Oh, it's just a mouse. We have plenty of those."
Some scientists,
we can't. Yeah,
like they create a chimp with a human penis, and everyone's gonna freak out. No.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing people
giving a chimp human arms. A human with a chimp body.
I mean, that's just. I mean, actually, you're doing a disservice to that animal, just crediting it, because its arms are actually way better if you just left them the way that they were.
Yeah,
see, some things you shouldn't change.
Chimps are way more athletic than humans.
Are you kidding me?
Like,
yeah. I mean, you should give humans
swinging
chimp
from trees,
arms.
doing flips to the next tree,
right?
And then here, humans struggling to do a pull-up.
I think people just don't want to see super powerful primates take over the world. Learning how to do things like machine metals and build airplanes.
But that's what I'm saying. We're going to mistreat them so bad. Guaranteed, humans are selfish creatures that think they're gods.
Right.
You know? So we're going to mistreat chimps if they are intelligent, and the chimps are going to revolt.
Exactly.
Yep. But it would be cool if we created hyper-intelligent animals.
Yeah, it would.
As long as we create hyper-intelligent humans that are way more hyper-intelligent than the animals. I don't know.
Right.
That would be scary, though.
It could pave the way for... It could pave the way for, like, certain primates to actually decode the Dr. Dolittle animal code of speaking that we'd never have known.
Right? It would be like the Jesus.
You can have an interpreter.
It would be like Jesus is the middleman for the gods and for humans, so they could communicate. It would be like the chimp would be...
It'd be like a chimp Jesus.
Yeah.
With long hair, a beard.
Probably.
It'd be like a wise chimp. Got it.
Yeah, but I was going to say, it would be scary if they made a human with like a 300 IQ. I would not trust
Seriously.
that motherfucker. Then that scared the shit out of me, because he would be able to destroy the world easily. Probably 300 IQ, you would just see everything before it happens, you know, or at least before humans see it. I don't know. You have anything else you want to say? No, that's it for the article. If you enjoyed it, let us know by leaving a comment or hitting the like button, and check out our link in the description to see our Patreon. And thanks for watching.